7:52 right now. We have 60 degrees, kind of a stable temperature throughout the state. And Royal Caribbean has a look inside its newest destination in Mexico with white sandy beaches and the tallest water slide in the Americas. Erik, the travel guy Hastings of ericthetravelguy.com. That's Erik with a K. Joins us now with the details. Good morning, Erik, with a K.
Good
So what's
morning.
new about this? Good to have you. I saw you dancing to our weather prep music too. That was
It's
it was
very
quite
exciting.
something I
This is
can't
uplifting.
unsee, and I'm a little disturbed, I must say.
That's about right.
But
Yes.
I'm going to go take some Tylenol now. So what's new about this destination? This is in Mexico, a Royal Caribbean, and they're promoting this heavily, even though it doesn't open up till 2027. Tell us what that's about.
Well, again, they're promoting it heavily because this is yet another edition of cruise lines listening to what their cruisers are telling them. And while, I'm really on the fence, Ken. This is private islands for cruise lines is a big subject for me. And you and I have talked about this over dinner and certainly over the phone because, on one hand, I appreciate the fact that cruise lines offer experiences that cruisers want to experience. On the other hand, I find private islands about as authentic as queso dip is to Mexican food. Like it's a manufactured thing. But the thing is, a lot of these beaches, not a lot, but some of these cruise ports in the Caribbean, especially, they frankly don't have great beaches, or they have beaches that are hard to get to, which require ground transport. Cruisers, statistically speaking, want to get off those ships and they want to get right to a beach. That's why they're on a Caribbean vacation, and I appreciate that. However, I personally don't like booking vacations just to do, manufactured things. I'm looking for some authenticity.
Yeah, you're not going to find somebody weaving authentic baskets on the shore unless they're paying to be there to serve the crowds coming off the ship.
And it's so easy to blame the cruise lines and make the cruise line the big bad corporation that's coming in and listen. Royal Caribbean and Carnival employ many local artists and local vendors to come and sell their wares. I mean, granted, they're taking a cut of it. Don't get me wrong. There's all kinds of shady. There's deals going on behind closed doors there. But I wouldn't assassinate the cruise lines for doing it because it's one of the things that cruisers want. And private islands are not a new concept. We forget Norwegian was one of the first lines to buy or lease a private island in 1977. So again, especially when these islands are great when the itinerary has to be changed due to weather or
Mhm.
whatever reason, or so they can use these private islands to sort of guarantee a good experience because they own or control everything that's going on during that experience.
Yeah, that is true. And literally every single word you said, I agree with. You pay money for a travel destination. It's while the ship is nice, you don't want to be one of 400 people jammed around the one pool. You
Right.
want to get off and see what's get lay down on a Mexican beach, and nothing like an open, pristine, virgin beach on an island. How lovely that is. But yeah, it's just an island. You could have that rock in the middle of the water. It could be near off the coast of Spain. It could be off the coast of Central Africa, or or in the Caribbean and or Mexico, and it makes no difference, right? It's just hot sun and sand, and so
Right.
but you don't get a Mexican experience. You could be anywhere. You could just in the middle of July, you could plop that in the middle of the Long Island Sound, for God's sake, and
Well,
although the water would be a little brown.
it's funny. I really think that what people need to remember about cruising, especially in the Caribbean, but the same can be said in the Mediterranean or Hawaii or Alaska or whatever. I think as you look to cruise, as you know, I love cruising. I think cruising is an excellent way to a starter way to see the world. You do get a taste of authenticity around just by virtue of going. You get that, but I think you really have to ask yourself what role do you want the destinations to play in your cruise experience? What role do you want the ship to play? Because you can't rely on the cruise company to dictate that to you. Now, you can if you want just a turnkey, I'll do whatever they tell me to do kind of thing. That's fine. But if you really want to take them, you have to decide where am I going? What am I going to see while I'm there? How long am I going to be there? What can I do that's authentic and that's unique, perhaps, to that particular place? Those are the kinds of questions I would ask, because the cruise line itself will say, "Well, we just want you on our ships. We want you in our private islands. We want you spending money in our premium restaurants. We want you buying photographs." That's what they want you to do, and that's great. You should do some of that, but authenticity should always play a role in any vacation, in my opinion.
You love to cruise, and I have never been on one, by the way, and I'm trying to convince my husband to let us go because he had one bad experience at the
Yeah,
age of 12 where it was a
yeah.
family cruise. That's bad enough, all right? It was a family, like extended family, 40 members of
Oh,
the family, and you have to do, all right, today we're going to meet on the deck at 2 o'clock and have
sounds
our picture
terrible.
and that kind of a thing. So
Sounds
that's
awful.
number one. Second thing is the cruise ship went out at the end of a tropical depression.
Yeah.
And so it was doing this the whole time. I'm getting nauseous just watching my hands do that. So he got
Don't
so
yeah.
sick for the days he was on the cruise that he vowed he would never get on a ship again. So I can't now, 40 years, 35 years later, I can't convince him to set foot on a ship, and I'm not going to go alone. So
No.
or else this comes off the finger. So anyway, that is a challenge. But
Yeah.
there are different grades of ship, different grades of cruising, and there
Yeah.
are umbrellas. So one company owns 17 other brands.
That's right.
So talk about what we have about a minute left. Talk about what to look for the starter who's looking for a cruise.
Number one, I would tell you pay attention to the duration of your cruise. Number one, if it's a starter, I would start on the ocean as opposed to river. So that's just right off the bat. You can take away river right off the bat. I would say if you're going to do your first cruise, do something in the ocean. Do the Caribbean, do Hawaii, do Alaska, and pay attention to the duration, because that's going to have everything to do with who else is on board. If you're on a 21-day cruise, that's probably going to be on the older side. Then again, if you're on a 3-day cruise, that's going to be on the younger side. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to families and children versus not families. That's second. And seek the advice of a qualified travel professional to help you navigate, those waters.
All right, that's great advice. And look, as a broadcast pro that he is, he did it within the seconds that we had left. Eric the Travel Guy Hastings of ericthetravelguy.com, all one word, Eric with a K. So ERIK, ericthetravelguy.com. Check out the website. Lots of great info there. Thank you, my friend, always for
Thank you,
joining
sir.
us. We appreciate you. Have a great day.